All right, folks. Well, they did it. They did it. They won the game. I was not optimistic. It's funny. I said I wasn't optimistic in that post. My last post in the game preview, but I did predict them to win, and wouldn't you know it, they won by a score very similar to my prediction. 28-24. I predicted 27-24. Um, I did want to say that I want this channel to be from the perspective of a fan. I was watching the post game show, the Patriots post game show. I don't think a lot of people watch this stuff anymore. It's funny. Um, the uh, they used to have these old the radio stations. I guess it's WEEI. They have these post game shows. It's kind of like officially sanctioned by the team. And you go. It's like it's old school. They don't really. People are getting all their content from the web these days. But these guys are like still hosting the show, and it's like you can tell it's kind of like I watch the show pretty regularly, but in a lot of ways, their show is stuck in the past. They're using these stupid, goofy sound effects. There's things about the show that I could probably learn from the way they do segments and things like that. They play their yeah, but they everything's well organized, which mine is not. But they have all these really goofy radio-based sound clips that they play. It's just annoying. The kind of the sound clips and stuff like that I've always found annoying. And then the hosts, the hosts on these official patch shows, like they're pretty knowledgeable, right? They have access to good data. I don't know where they're getting the access to their pass rush data. I tried to find the pass rush stats. See how our offensive line held up, which I know they didn't. We'll get to that later. And I don't know where they're getting it from. Maybe the guy's paying for advanced stats or something like that. I couldn't easily find the pass rush success rates of our offensive linemen, which is disappointing. So they're knowledgeable. They have good takes generally. I'm not saying that they don't know what they're talking about, but the elitism and the sort of this idea, like so many of these sports guys, just they think that their shit doesn't stink. They think that they're they wield their power. They're power tripping. And when it comes to phone callers, it's like just rude. They're just rude. Some of these people that call are out to lunch, and they hung up on one guy that was just kind of like rambling on and on. Some of these people call, they don't have much to say, they don't really make any interesting points. So in that situation, I'm glad they cut these people off because it's incredibly uncomfortable when they talk to some of these idiots who call in. I have no idea what they're talking about or just seem to want to ramble, on the air. But some of these people come in calling with pretty good takes, and they take this snooty attitude when they call up, like, oh yeah, well, it's you just sort of like discount everything they have to say, even when people make good points. And I want to let you all know, I'm one of you. I'm a fan. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm not an expert on football. I have opinions. I mostly, I think a lot of what I gather is going to be a lot of what you gather. So you're not really coming to me for information. You're coming to me to hear somebody who's a fellow fan and to get excited about the team, as long as good things are happening, or to commiserate about the team if good things aren't happening. And I don't want you to think that, unlike these other a-holes, I don't think I'm better than you. I don't think that your opinion doesn't matter. I want you to know that that's part of why I started this channel, is because we should. There's nothing worse than elitist snobs who think that they're better than other people, who judge the people that watch their show. How can you judge the people that watch your show? How can you treat people lesser than? It's just it's disgusting. So yeah, those people on that what is it, Patriots post game show, get off your freaking high horses. You're not so freaking great. You think you know everything just because you've been covering this for a long time. Stop being a dick. All right. That said, there definitely are. It's not like they don't know football. They do know, and some of the points they make are correct. But they got to stop being so full of themselves. All right. So I just want to say that I'm one of you guys. I'm a fan. We're fans. Uh, any take is valid until it's absolutely not. Some takes are like what the hell. But I think that everyone deserves to be heard if they have something interesting to say. All right. Getting into the game. Tough game. Tough game. I sort of took notes as the game went along, so I think I'm going to go about it in that way, and things will come up as I go. So, first of all, I think at one point Kyle Williams had a nice return. Um, People have been like questioning whether or not he's worked. I think some people have said it's a bad experiment. I don't think it's a bad experiment. The guy's got speed. He's one of the fastest guys on the team. Antonio Gibson was a much better, more consistent guy, I would say. But you want somebody who's somewhat dynamic who can give you a chance to run off a big play, get 30 or 40 yards, give you great field position. Kyle Williams is young. He's not going to be great at it by default. Everyone was going over the moon for this guy Chisholm. Chisholm looked a lot better in preseason than he's looked during the season. He hasn't really had one play that made me stand up and say, wow, this guy is a guy that needs to be on the team. So it's good that they took it away from him. I don't know why. I guess you can't have, I don't know why Marcus Jones also wouldn't be an option on the kick return. Like, I don't get this. I guess you have to have a punt returner. They can't use double duty, punt returner and kick returner. It seems like basically the same skill set. But it seems to me like most importantly, you want a guy who's fast and a guy who can potentially hit holes. I don't think Kyle Williams has the greatest kind of vision upfield necessarily. I could see Ramondre being put into the kick return role. I don't know if I think they sometimes use him. Um, I could see. I think you'd think that Henderson would be great for that kick return role, the fastest guy on the team, even faster than Williams. I wouldn't mind seeing Williams and Henderson out there doing kick returns all the time, so that you get one of two guys who has the speed to break off a big play. But definitely haven't seen a lot of consistency in the return, and at least Kyle Williams did have one decent return early. For the most part, special teams did not distinguish themselves particularly in this game, especially with that horrendous play that we'll get to later, which I just did not understand at all. But at least it wasn't a meltdown like it was against Buffalo. Um, anyway, I'll get to that later. I think I touch on the special teams again later, but there was okay. So as we went, Moses gets hurt early, and the pocket did not hold up for May for the most part. At 44% pressure rate, they were saying on the Patriots post-game show. That's an awful lot. We're seeing, Vidarian Lowe didn't look half as good in this game as he did in the Buffalo game. They're also dealing with Thayer Munford, this guy who they picked up randomly. I don't know why Munford is a better option. I guess he's more of a veteran. That's why you see him in there instead of Bryant, who I thought we'd see more of maybe. They actually did play Caden Wallace in this game. First time I've even heard Caden Wallace's name in like a year. Someone said after the game they played him. I didn't notice him playing particularly. I didn't watch him at all, so I don't know if he showed anything. It would certainly be nice if any asset from the previous year's drafts could actually pan out at all. I don't know. I wish I knew how Caden Wallace played. I'm sure he didn't play that many snaps. But the offensive line did not have a good game in any way, shape, or form. They couldn't really stave off the pass rush. Fortunately for them, Drake May can play through pass rush. He's good against the blitz. We had some holes. There was some good running in that first half, and then they had to largely abandon the run because of the situation we were put in that game. Didn't get to see too much of Henderson before his concussion, and that's obviously disappointing. Once Henderson got concussed, I was like, oh God. I didn't know what it was. At first I thought it was some other kind of injury. Once I saw the replay and saw that they said they call it a head injury. I mean, why don't they just say he was probably concussed, I don't know why they call it a head injury. It's not like your head gets injured. Your brain is really what's getting injured. They call it a head injury, whatever. I guess it's a catch-all term, but as soon as he went out, I was like, oh, damn. That's going to potentially be a problem. There goes our running game, Not there goes our running game because I actually, as I said in the previous show, in the preview, I should say, I said that I thought Ramondre was good, and Ramondre, what a game for him. I'll get to that in a second, but not having Henderson in there felt like, I think it was about early second quarter, something like that. It felt like that was going to be potentially a death blow. Going to make our offense more one-dimensional. Fortunately, that didn't end up being the case thanks to a great game from Ramondre. But certainly, you wonder if Henderson will play this week. Probably not. My guess is concussion protocol. Usually they're out a week. lose Henderson for the Jets. If there's any team we can beat without half of our weapons, it's the Jets. If we get Milton Williams back in that game, then we should still be able to win. I don't know if we will. I'll wait on that for the next game preview. But losing Henderson for most of this game was tough and you know, sad to watch too, because he's such a fun player to watch, so dynamic with those explosive plays and everything. So, but it's a credit to the team for pushing forward without one of their best offensive weapons. Let's see. Hollins early on makes another huge catch. May seems to think, or seems to basically know that he can put the ball way up, and it's a nice weapon to have. You know, Mac Hollins coming in here, I really was not a big fan of the ad, to be honest. In the preseason, I thought, you know, Mac Hollins is not really a guy who Buffalo utilizes very often. He seemed like a guy who was kind of, you know, getting a little bit older. I don't know. I guess he's not as old as I thought. I think he's only in his late 20s, if I remember correctly. Let me see, actually. That's something I'm going to check on. Because I forget how old Mac Hollins is. He is 32, so he is. He's getting near the end of his... It's funny, he looks so young when you watch him on those... watch him in those Instagram videos and see him in those pregame stuff, you know. 32. He's probably only got a year or two left, but I mean, it kind of suggests we really do need to draft more wide receivers. Think about Hollins and Diggs both being near the ends of their career. But yeah, he's a great guy to have for those balls where May can just put it way up in the air where nobody but him can get it with his height and reach. And that was a big play. That one where he climbed the ladder, as they say, and grabbed that one out. That was a huge important play for us. That was after. Oh, I was going to say, to start off, we had the usual defensive breakdown. I was a little worried in this game, honestly, when they gave up that first touchdown. And even though we'd done that many times earlier in the year, it's kind of like they'd gotten away from that for at least the Bills game. And so you kind of hope, well, maybe that's the thing of the past. It came back, and I was kind of like, well, you know, it's the nice thing about it is if you give up that early touchdown, you think to yourself, we've seen this before. Maybe the defense turns it on later in the game. But on some level, also, it was concerning because you knew the defense wasn't at 100%, and you knew it was going to be a tough game from the start anyway. So giving up that early touchdown to Baltimore was just like, it was concerning for sure. As soon as they got down 7-0 quick, I almost started to wonder, this could get ugly here. But you know, then Mac Hollins made that great catch on the ensuing, and I think it was the next drive where they scored their first touchdown to answer. At that point, you knew it was going to be a game. So you know, big play, and like seeing that. You know, we'll probably see a lot more of that. It's a play where you feel like as long as there's not too many guys behind Mac Hollins, if you make it put the ball high up in the air like that, it's nice to know that you have a guy who can go get it and will limit the opportunity for an interception in that type of situation. One thing I saw the pass rush just struggling as usual. Again, we don't have Williams, no Spillane, no Landry, still playing kind of limited. And, you know, there was a lot of times where we sent guys, you know, we were getting some pressure, but they could not get that final break. That's what I noticed with Barmore. You know, Barmore, he pushes and he gets there and he's close, but he just can't seem to extricate himself from the defender. And yeah, the pass rush is just, you know, I think they said we had a 22% pass rush. That's a horrible number. You know, again, we're still not getting the pass rush we need. I don't think we're going to see any kind of a half-decent pass rush until we end up with Landry back to full strength, which who knows if that'll even happen this year. We're going to get Williams back, I think, hopefully either the Jets game or the Dolphins game. That'll certainly help because he was a major part to help push the pass rush a little bit. Him and Barmore working together seemed to be a good way to get a good, decent pass rush going. And, you know, no Chason. I didn't see Chason getting through. Chason redeemed himself late in the game, as we'll talk about later, but not seeing Chason getting to the quarterback as much anymore. Landry not really getting to the quarterback at all. Just a terrible pass rushing game. We're going to need, at the very least, getting Williams back will be big, and getting Spillane back, I think, will help. But this pass rush is what it is. It's not the strength of the team. Ideally, Landry will his condition improves to the point where he can start to be a sack threat. And Chase I think, is always a sack threat to some extent, even though he's slowed down a little bit as the season has gone on. But yeah, too much time for Lamar Jackson back there. If this had been a healthy running Lamar, then we would have had some serious issues. Fortunately, it wasn't that. So, but even still, like the pass coverage is kind of like, what? It just doesn't seem like we can successfully play zone defense. It's just they usually, every time we see failures, it's just like there's too many guys open in the middle of the field. Way too many guys open in the middle of the field. It seems like in these zones, like guys, manage. It's like it's okay. It's one thing to like try to give your guys a space, but it's like the cornerbacks or the safeties are all 5 yards off the ball carrier. There's basically no one in the immediate vicinity of the ball carrier, and it just seems like our secondary does not know how to play zone. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if this is just how it works with the zone. It's like it just seems like we suck at zone. A lot of people are saying, "Well, just play man." Well, I think there's a reason why they play zone. I think the reason mostly is so that, maybe because they're afraid of giving up big plays. I suppose zone is kind of better for that. I know. It does seem like man. We have a type of coverage unit that works better for man. They should just improve at playing zone, because it seems like, for whatever reason, you need a mix of man and zone, and we're just not very good at zone. There's just too many guys wide open, especially the middle of the field. So lots of opportunities for guys in the middle of the field. People were talking about how, I think Marcus Jones being hurt for this one, he didn't play that many snaps. I think he played a much smaller percentage of snaps than he usually does. I think if he'd been healthy, people were saying on the pulpit that you could put him against Zay Flowers, because they're both the same kind of player. They're sort of, quick, shifty kind of guys. I think Jones would have been a much better cover for Zay Flowers, except for the fact that he was injured. So he wasn't going to be able to keep up with him, particularly in that game. So they put our best, Zay Flowers was their best wide receiver, so they put Gonzo on him. Gonzo does have good, decent speed for a big guy, but Zay Flowers specifically said he likes against big corners. You could tell it wasn't a great Gonzo looked like incapable of covering Zay Flowers on a number of plays, and it was concerning. I'd like to think that our secondary is pretty good. I generally like our cornerbacks. Our safeties are young, but I'd like to think improving. But it was just too easy. I think they said Lamar Jackson was 7 for 10, and then Tyler Huntley was 9 for 10. It's giving up a pretty good completion percentage there. Maybe things will improve once we get Williams back and the pass rush. Hopefully, if Landry can get better, we'll force more bad throws with a little bit more pressure. But I don't know. Spillane being back, I mean, he probably is better in coverage as a linebacker than some of these other people are. But it just seemed like, there was never a time where it felt like you saw very few great pass breakups until Gonzo made that play later in the game, in the fourth quarter. It was just like we just wasn't seeing great coverage looks from the secondary in general, and too many guys wide open. It just seemed too easy for both Lamar Jackson and Huntley. I mean, at least later on with Huntley, you were seeing a lot of more short passes. I don't think Huntley has the same arm that Lamar Jackson has. But it just wasn't good enough. That kind of secondary is not going to fly. You can't rely on Drake May to have a fantastic game. If your secondary plays like that, then as soon as Drake May has a bad game, you're done. You're done for. So, yeah, the secondary is going to have to be better. I don't know if I see us getting a lot. I think with Marcus Jones healthy, we'd see a different game there. Carlton Davis did get injured. Hopefully he is not too bad off. Between him and Carlton Davis gets injured every single game, so hopefully that's, just another one of those types of situations. But certainly hoping that Marcus Jones and Carl Davis' injuries, you never know what they are. They don't tell you exactly how bad they are, but if they're bad, that's going to look real bad for our secondary going forward. I think even Charles Woods, the backup cornerback, got injured, so something to watch. Certainly we started off poorly in coverage, and it's on, and only we got put into a worse situation as more guys got injured. And it's pretty much all of our secondary seem to have some kind of issue other than Gonzalez. Gonzalez is the only one who managed not to get injured yesterday. Anyway, gonna need better pass coverage going forward, or that could be a major Achilles heel for the team. We have to learn how to play zone. That's the other thing. Got to learn how to play zone. Need better zone coverage than what we saw. Let's see. So yeah, Henderson had that concussion. It happens. It's a hard thing. You wonder sometimes if football will last with plays like that. It's so hard to watch guys bash their heads. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that I'm not. Football's a great game to watch, but I do hate seeing the people having head injuries, as they say, or concussions that could affect them for the rest of their life. So let's hope he gets better. Let's hope that he gets the game off against the Jets if he needs it. And I think that they'll probably, by default, keep him out for a week. So we'll have to see more from Ramondre again next week. But, it's not so bad. Give Henderson a break. Have him come out fresh for the playoffs. Not such a terrible thing. It's terrible that he has this concussion, though. I don't like to see that at all. So near the end of the second half, all right, this was a ref ball game. Oh, by the way, this game was really annoying to watch. Just a really hard game to watch. It ended well. That fourth quarter was certainly made it all sort of it was the ultimate bomb for the 1,000 nicks and cuts of watching this game. I mean, it was just so frustrating on so many levels. We never looked like we were in control. Defense was questionable from start to finish. And stupid penalties. The refs totally screwing us over. And I'm usually not the type of person that likes to complain about refs. I think it's kind of, a lot of fans do. They're automatically resort to the refs sucked. We lost because of the refs. A lot of fans think that we lost the Bills game because of the refs. I don't think that's true at all. I think the refs called it mostly a pretty good game. People complain. They say that was an interception, in that Bills game. It wasn't an interception. They both had possession of the ball. Both people have possession of the ball. The tie goes to the offense. That's just how the rules work. By the time he stripped the ball, they were already on the ground. They'd been on the ground for a couple of seconds. It's not a fumble, Or sorry, it's not. Yeah, not a fumble. It's not an interception. People were saying they weren't calling holds against the Bills. They did call at least one hold. A lot of Bills fans will point out that they did call that one hold, and then Buffalo came right out the next play and shot it into the end zone. Josh Allen did. So, I think we lost fair and square. I think the Bills were the better team last week. Anyone who's claiming that the refs cost us a win last week, I think is just lying to themselves. Nothing I hate more than people who like to claim that the team lost just based on the refs. Anybody could make an argument that their team lost based on the refs, but in this game, the refs certainly didn't help, and they had to overcome the refs' bad calls. You hate for a team to have to overcome the refs' bad calls, but the first call was that. Really, it was just two calls that I found particularly egregious. One was that phantom roughing the passer call. We give up the ball. That was another just so really annoying point of the game. They hike the ball to Drake May. It's just like having hiking issues. Getting the ball to May issues, and May didn't have. He didn't look great for most of this game, and he looked like this. That fumble was a dumb fumble. So we gave the ball up, and we should have gotten the ball right back and had a shot to kick a field goal, to go up into the half before we got the ball. And they call a roughing the passer that was like the guy, I think after the play was over, the guy touched him or something like that. was not roughing the passer. That call was absolutely ridiculous. Should have been the Pats' ball with about, I think it was like, what, 30 seconds or something like that. Um, would have given us a shot to try to go 10, 15 yards and go out on a high point with a field goal. Just a terrible call. There was no roughing the passer there. Absolutely ridiculous. I think Lamar went out of the game about a couple minutes before the halftime. I think that they brought in Huntley, and I know Lamar had injury issues, but I gotta say, as much as I said that the Pats needed to win this game to prove to me they're a contender. Well, they did, and they've proven to me that they can be a contender. I believe they can beat anybody in the AFC at this point, but you do wonder if they could have won that game if Lamar Jackson stays in, because Lamar Jackson was significantly, I think, more of a threat than Huntley. As soon as Huntley came in, I was sort of thinking, oh, this is, we got this game. It's like it's right before the half, we're tied. They got Lamar Huntley in there, or sorry, not Lamar, Tyler Huntley. Who they call this Snoop guy. How did Huntley get this Snoop name? Does he look like Snoop? Is he a fan of Snoop? I have no idea. But you had to think, oh yeah, we got this game in the bag. They don't even have Lamar Jackson in. I mean, I thought there was a chance that maybe Lamar would return the game, but you sure as hell couldn't convince me that it was gonna be easy for us to lose a game to the Huntley, who's just mediocre backup quarterback. I've watched other Ravens games earlier this year with Huntley in there, and he's not a guy that you can ever expect to rely on to win a game. They were having so much success running the ball with Derrick Henry, and that was the other thing I saw. From early on, it was clear that it was the James Cook second half of the Bills all over again. Derrick Henry just could not be stopped. I think they said he averaged 7.5 yards per carry. It's just kind of like, I said it was going to be tough to stop him. I thought they would have a hard time winning this game if they couldn't stop him. They basically did have a hard time winning this game because they couldn't stop him. Thank John Harbaugh for taking him out. Everyone's talking about this. It's things like that make you wonder. Well, is this league scripted? Is there it's like, or is this some kind of a is there some kind of a money the line on this thing? Or some interests are preventing them from using? It's like stuff like this. You hate to think that the NFL is the WWE. That it's all scripted. But it's kind of like, in what way, shape, or form does it make sense to bench a guy who's averaging 7.5 yards per rush at the key moment of the game in the fourth quarter? I'm kind of jumping forward here, but it's just kind of like I had to talk about Derrick Henry. We had no answer for Derrick Henry this whole game, and just gaping holes. The defensive line without Spillane, without Williams, just got manhandled by this Ravens offensive line, and so many huge holes. Whether it was up the middle, whether it was to the left or the right, I think they said that he had more success running to the left. Just it really didn't feel like we were going to win that game. It really didn't feel like we were going to win that game with how easy it seemed, especially as they pushed more towards towards the end zone in those last like 20, 30 yards. They had a couple plays where they just kind of broke it off and ran it, and it just looked like our defense was not going to be able to get a stop at all early on. For the first three quarters, defense was basically non-existent. Barely slowed down Henry at all, and there's just absolutely no sense to them not playing Henry in that fourth quarter. We ended up winning because of it. It does make you wonder, what is going on there. It's like John Harbaugh, one of the greatest coaches the last couple of decades, I'd say. Consistently a winner. He's been to the Super Bowl and won it several times over, and it just doesn't make any sense. There's no justifiable. I thought maybe he was injured, and my friends said the same thing. My friend was a Bills fan, was saying, why wouldn't they play Henry? I was like, maybe there was some secret injury. No, they're not saying it's a secret injury. They just decided that they wanted to stick with the rotation. That's the official reasoning. That makes no sense. That's if you just, especially with your starting quarterback out, and you're gonna take out the guy who's had the most success in the game against the opposing team. It makes zero sense at all. It makes me wonder. It scares me. Early in the year, I saw this ad. They were saying that it was kind of an ad for parity in the league, and they were saying, "Believe it, your team can go to the championship." They had every single team in a parade. Didn't see the ad too many times, but it's like it does make you wonder, if they decided to upend things, take out. This is like, oh, well, this will be the year where we get everyone else involved on the teams that don't particularly do as well. So we'll have all the teams that were slated to make the playoffs and be the usual contenders. We'll knock them out. It's like I would hate to think. Obviously, it would be no point in me making the show. Be no point in my entire fandom watching for 20 years if the whole league was scripted. I don't want to believe this. My cousin has made comments to this effect that it is scripted in the past. You don't want to believe it. You want to believe that this is worth your time and worth watching. But when Derrick Henry gets benched like that, I don't know. If it was scripted, then the refs trying to screw the Patriots in the game doesn't really add up with Henry being benched. So I guess it's kind of like you never know, differing directives from differing groups of powerful groups. Who the hell knows? I don't want to go into this too much, but I will say that it's always a niggling suspicion that you don't want to have in the back of your head that somehow this is all set up somehow, or there are multiple setups going on. But you got to wonder why John Harbaugh didn't rush Henry in that fourth quarter. And, in a game that the Patriots should have won easily once Lamar Jackson was out, it was not that. And that is disappointing. Anyway, regardless, I still think they won the game. That's the important thing, and it makes them a contender. I said they would need to win this game to be a contender. Both sides had a lot of major injury losses, so it wasn't just like not just Lamar going out. We lost some of our key pieces, or guys were severely compromised in that game. So it wasn't like it wasn't still a I wouldn't say spectacular win, but it was a well fought, well deserved, resilient win. But certainly. Not the win I would have liked to have seen coming into the game. You want to see them beat Lamar Jackson for 4 quarters. You want to see them. You don't want to feel like it was anything about this game that the Patriots didn't earn. And the fact that they didn't play Derrick Henry in that last bit, and the fact that Lamar Jackson went out before the second half even started. The Patriots did have to earn this to some extent, but not to the level you would like to see as a Patriots fan. So. They still earned it. I'll still say that they're a contender, but it's not the slam dunk that I was really hoping for them to really prove that they were out and out. This was going to make them a real threat, and they are a real threat. But it's going to be tight. Anyone can beat anybody. That's the bottom line. And when it comes to this playoffs, anyone's going to be able to beat everyone in every single game. Should be a very exciting playoffs. Hopefully not by design. Anyway. Moving on. All right. So yeah, they stole those 3 points from the Pats, or a chance at 3 points from the Pats by calling that phantom roughing the passer call. Did not understand that at all. Then I think later in the game, let's see. So I think we had the ball. I believe it was kind of like as hard as that. It's hard for me to remember. I write these notes down. I don't know exactly what point of the game they happened, but I think we had our little run. Did we come out? You know what? Let me go back to this. I'm actually gonna go to ESPN and go over the game as it went, so I have some idea. Let's see, ESPN. I want to know. I need to kind of go over the flow of the game to really understand here. And we're gonna go right there. All right, here we go. Box score. I might have to do this every time now. Let's see. All right. First quarter, touchdown. And that's right. There was also that early pick. Drake May did not look great early in this game. Fortunately, we all know that changed and he became a world beater. But that interception that he threw and that after that first, that didn't feel good. That was that interception after the Baltimore scored, knowing that hoping that they would even get a field goal on that drive for him to throw. It's just I don't know. No one's perfect. People are going to make mistakes, but I didn't get that pass at all. and then she kept us from a chance of scoring early. Then let's see, who was the one that fumbled? It was I think Derrick Henry fumbled early, right? Yeah, that's it. It was Derrick Henry. So that was the other reason why maybe Derrick Henry was kept out to prevent a fumble. I mean, if a guy's averaging 7.5 yards, I don't care if he's fumbled in the game. You know, it wasn't like he wasn't running after that first fumble. He had plenty of other rushes after that first fumble, so I don't think it had anything to do with his fumble early. You know, it was just there's absolutely no logical reason not to let Derrick Henry have the ball. All right, then we score the touchdown. What was that touchdown on? So yeah, I did want to say, you know, thank goodness. Nice to see them reincorporate Hooper in this game. He hadn't really been utilized as a pass catcher, and he seems to be pretty solid as a tight end and as a receiver. You know, relying too much on Hunter Henry. Seems like the people start to know that you can sort of keep an eye out for him, and so I think incorporating Hooper makes it so that you can go back to Henry. I like the back and forth to Henry and Hooper. They're both very capable pass catchers, and I'm glad they got Hooper re-involved because he hadn't done a lot for a number of games. Let's see. It was just a long. I mean, that was the other thing is that early on you kind of wondered would they be able to score. There's the 20-yard pass to Hollins where he climbed the ladder. Um, 26 yards to Hooper, and then let's see, and then he goes to Hunter Henry. It was good to see them. For a while, they were kind of struggling in red zone offense. I think that it seems like McDaniels has learned to scheme a little bit better there. We haven't really been. You know, we're not just running into the pile. You know, we're not a team that can run in short yardage and get first downs easily, which is rough. Our offensive line is just not that. So we're gonna have to continue to be creative, scheming up plays either for tight ends or for Drake May to run it in, or for, you know, like they did with Diggs in that one game against Atlanta to scheme somebody at the back of the end zone or something like that. You know, running into the pile by the goal line is not. I think they've realized that that's not going to work anymore. Okay, let's see. We were able to get a punt. I was going to say that I thought they were really relying on touchbacks in this game. There was a lot of Borregales kicking the ball out of the end zone, and you start you on the 35 there. You know, I know they were probably trying to avoid a disaster like it was against the Bills, but you don't want to give them average field position at the 35. You'd like to try to get it in that drop zone. So I thought there was, you know, it's like you can't play scared. You know, if we're just gonna, it's like you're not winning the battle if you think your special teams is so incapable that you want to give the opposing team a 35-yard line start every single time. You know, it's too many. I thought there was too much of an emphasis on them kicking the ball out of the end zone for touchbacks, and you know, you're not winning if it's like you're not winning if you give up huge plays on kick returns, but you're also not winning if you're giving them an average of a 35-yard line to start from. So, you know, I mean, there are times in the game where, you know, if you've had, I think in that Bills game, if they'd kicked out of the end zone a few times, like, you know, maybe the first play out of the half, that would have been a good time to kick the ball out of the end zone instead of allowing them to come all the way back, have that huge return, especially if you're going up against a kick returner who's known to be good, like the Bills guy was. But I just thought it was overdone. Way too many kicks out of the end zone, and I hope they don't continue to do that because I don't think that's smart. It's smarter to fix whatever's going on with your special teams and actually stop guys before the 30-yard line as much as you can, and to get that ball in that drop zone. Let's see. So we managed to get a stop there. All right. Yeah, Lamar Jackson. They did manage to get an early stop. We came back, got a field goal. Let's see, what was the final situation there? Yeah, Borregales, I should say. They call him Aurora Borregales in the Pats pulpit, which I think is funny. Guy's solid, you know. I don't think he's one of the best kickers in the league, but he's certainly above average. And, you know, he's got a good leg. You can rely on him to make field goals in that 40 to 60 range, which, you know, good enough. He seems like a good kid, too. there's a cool video of him teaching an equipment manager or something like that how to kick a field goal, and he does manage to do it. But yeah, you gotta like Borregales. Preseason, I was calling for Parker Romo to be the guy, and obviously that was looking incredibly foolish at this point. So yeah, congratulations, Borregales. Hopefully he'll be our kicker for 20 years and just continue to be as great as he's been this year. Let's see. Nice to have a guy like that, though, who you can rely on. We did hold him to a field goal, I guess. Let's see. 18-yard pass, 3-yard run, 7-yard pass. Okay. Let's see. We did have a few. Oh, look, the Gibbons stopped him for -5 yards. So, Gibbons, for a backup, he does a decent job as a backup. Not a guy you want to see starting, but certainly solid. Then you've got that. Let's see. There was and May fumbles. Yeah, that was ugly. And there was the roughing the passer call that wasn't. Let's see. Our first play back, 3 plays, and we punt. At this point, I started to be concerned because, we should have been up 13-10 going into the second half. And just a pretty uninspired series that came out of that. And it seemed like, at that point, I really started to be concerned because it seemed like a lot of the offense was just kind of like this sort of horizontal stuff, not really trying to get down the field. We're going for these tiny little chunk plays. Everything seemed to be difficult at that point. And, that was the first sign that this wasn't going to be an easy game coming out of the half. Thinking that Huntley was in there, I was not too concerned, but that was a pretty ugly drive. Let's see, what was that delay of? Then they had the delay of game penalty, which is also, there was some clock issues in this game too. They burned some timeouts early. Seeing some of that lately, and we could end up missing some of those timeouts in future games. So I think they're going to have to clean up some of there does seem to be some confusion. I don't know how much that has to do with coaches not being on the same page. That was a little disappointing. Then we've got the missed field goal. Thank God that the Ravens no longer have Justin Tucker. Wouldn't have seen that in the old days. This loop guy is not Justin Tucker, that's for sure. They were able to get a stop after a 22-yard run, then a -1 with Kevin Mitchell. Let's see, sack, 9-yard pass, and this is at this point Huntley's in. That pass to Hopkins was just, that was an annoying one. I really thought that wasn't a catch, but it was. It's interesting though. No, it's like it just kind of jumps. What is going on here? Oh, I see. Because we had 5-yard 23 -1. Oh, we got a sack here. That's it. -7 yards. Yeah, there's my boy Anthony Jennings. I was glad I made a shout out to him in the last video. What do you know? He comes through with a key sack here at that point. That was great. And yeah, let's see. 3rd and 18. All right, so they missed the field goal at that point. We drive down. Let's see. That was the one that I didn't like. So then they threw a pass. They had Huntley in. At this point, we're already up by a field goal. They had a 1-yard run, a 23-yard pass to Stevenson. That was a great pass. Ramondre just great all around. Had good rushes, even despite the fact sometimes he had no holes to run to, thanks to our crap offensive line. But, he looked good the whole game. This looks like the old Ramondre Stevenson again. It's been a while. He hasn't really done much. I think without Henderson in there, he kind of knew he had to turn it up. And great to see Ramondre Stevenson bounce back and become a big part of the offense again. I was probably just as skeptical that he was going to be able to turn around as anyone would be earlier this year after that Pittsburgh game where, it was just so maddening to see him lose the ball twice within the 5-yard line. There's nothing more painful as a fan than feeling like you're about to score and then seeing everything go the other way. So, great job, great game from Ramondre all around. Kind of looked like the guy that made us excited about having, the guy we thought we were excited to have in his earlier years of his career. They were saying also he was doing a great job pass blocking, and I'm happy it's working out well. Obviously you've got the Achilles heel still there, should be there in everyone's minds. I worry that at some point we're going to give the ball to Ramondre. He's going to fumble in a key situation, but I have noticed that he's been putting 2 hands on the ball more when there's running in traffic. So it's hopefully he keeps remembering to. We don't want him to play scared because obviously we saw that there was a period there after that Pittsburgh game where it looked like he just had lost all confidence and didn't want to make moves, didn't want to do anything. But this was a good game for him all around. He really is a good pass catcher. He does great as a check down option or wheel route. Um, and he had some huge plays in this game that really made a difference. I don't think the Patriots wouldn't have won this game without Ramondre's contributions. But at the same time, they're up 13-10, and we were on a pretty decent run. And then they go for the end zone on that play on. I think it was 3rd and 2. They take a deep shot. It's like they take a deep shot to Ramondre Stevenson. Now I know May is the deep shot king, so no surprise. But it's like you have their backup quarterback in. It's a 3rd and 2. Why not? There's no need for urgency there. Just calm down and it's like why are we taking shots at the end zone when they have their backup quarterback? You're on a drive that has been fairly successful. They take a shot at the end zone on 3rd and 2. What was the point of that? I thought that was a terrible call in the moment. There are times when you need to do that to kind of get momentum. They already had a 3-point lead. They didn't need momentum. They ended up going for Ramondre. It was almost there. The throw was good, but I don't see why Ramondre isn't the guy you go deep to there. They could have gone to any of the wide receivers, and that would have been a good deep shot if they were going to do it. They shouldn't have done the deep shot at all. It should have just been some, a classic. McDaniels type play where you just kind of have slot receiver, some kind of quick out, something quick to get those 2 yards. Do not like that play call one bit. Then Derrick Henry just runs all over us. They keep 3rd and 1. Let's see on the incomplete. Yeah, that was the play there where Hopkins made that catch that they thought he wasn't. That was a good catch. You got to hand it to him. Hopkins still has a little bit of magic left in him, even though he's old as the hills. Let's see. Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry, left end 18 for 3. And then, there we go. There was that Zay Flowers at the end there. Oh, okay, so Luke missed the extra point. Right. I forgot about that. It was an extra point. Anyway. I don't remember missing the extra point. It's funny. I think I vaguely remember it, but it ended up being a huge point anyway. I mean, to some extent it was because it gave us a 4-point lead instead of a 3-point lead. But okay, so then we lose it on downs. Let's see. I mean, that was one of the most annoying points of the game where they'd come down, scored a touchdown on an 18-yard touchdown run by Flowers, where it looked like there was just a huge hole. Nobody could stop. It was just like at that point of the game. And then I think there was also a penalty. Right, there was the penalty on the leverage play, the quote-unquote leverage play. So it was just like this game was so hard to watch. I was just constantly frustrated up until I think that point. This is when was this? This is probably 3rd quarter. Yeah. The 3rd quarter was just painful in a variety of ways. For one, it was like we weren't asserting ourselves against their backup quarterback. For 2, it seemed like a lot of stupid penalties were happening, and still had the sour taste of them not calling that egregious pretend roughing the passer call. And stupid stuff just kept happening. They have this was like the low point of the game where they have the penalty. 18-yard touchdown run for Flowers. Then they commit a penalty on the extra point. Let's see. I guess no, they didn't. Then they commit a penalty on the extra point, and then Drake May fumbles the ball on a terrible snap. I don't know if it was, or actually, I think it was May's fault. He recovers the ball, but it was just kind of like at that point, it felt like we're not going to win this thing. We're down by 4, and we're bumbling our way to failure. And it was just after the penalty where fortunately the penalty didn't make any difference. So we ended up starting on the 25 instead of our own 35, which is fine. But it was just kind of like, at that point, I really started to doubt. I really started to feel like one more touchdown. We were down by 4 at that point. I thought one more touchdown, and the chances of us winning that game were very slim. And it didn't start in a good way at all with May fumbling it. But gets it past to Hunter Henry. And 3rd and 4. He gets Booty for 5 yards. That was good. Let's see. Gotta go. Then we've got the big play to Diggs. What a game for Diggs. I'm going to go into that a little bit later. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And then there was that awful, awful, awful call. So let me see here. The game was just a chore to watch. And then they have this special teams call. Now, what on earth were they thinking with this one? They were trying some chicanery earlier in the game that they ended up canceling because they didn't like the look, I guess, and they tried it again. Like, what was there in a situation again? I mean, we were down by 4 at that point, so maybe a little more urgency than the Ramondre route call on 3rd and 2, which I also didn't like. But you're down by 4, We got stopped, and then we called this absolutely ridiculous play where they hiked the ball to Mapu, who I don't know if Mapu has ever thrown the ball or ever had any kind of reps as a quarterback, but it didn't work at all. Baltimore was not surprised. It's like you're down by 4. They've got their backup quarterback in. You really think that this is a time deserving of like an all-out emergency special teams play where we're going to go for, the element of surprise? I mean, we're on our side of the field. I think we were on, let's see, where were we? Yeah, I think New England 44. So, it's not the end of the world, I guess, if they get it, but it's just too risky, with their backup quarterback in, why do you feel like you need this first down so desperately? Just a terrible, on the other side of it, you give this play up, and then even their backup quarterback only has to go, 44 yards to get to the end zone instead of, 80 or whatever it is, or 70. Just, you don't want to give them extra chances to win. That was a terrible call. Having Mapu be the passer just makes absolutely no sense. Like, I could see, sneaking somebody else in there, or I don't know. It's just I don't know what they were thinking with that play call. I think everybody knew that was a stupid call. They were very lucky they won this game because a lot of people would have pointed to that as the play where they lost the game. And fortunately, they were able to survive it. But I don't know what they were thinking. I have no idea. Mapu throwing the ball to a guy, it was like, that really, was not open at all. No one got fooled. It was just a terrible, terrible play. Then they come back and do actually, with Huntley, score the touchdown. So it's sort of like your worst nightmare. Zay Flowers, 14 yards. Let's see. Derrick Henry again. Derrick Henry, 6 yards. Derrick Henry again. It seemed like every time Derrick Henry touched the ball, he was going to get a minimum of 3 or 4 yards every single time. Sometimes they didn't even touch him for 3 or 4 yards. The tackling was not great in this game either. Saw a lot of weak tackling. A lot of guys who should have had a shot behind the line that didn't really get it together in any kind of way. And then we get to the 4th quarter, and everything turns around. Let me see if there's anything more on this that I wanted to say. Yeah, for a while there in that 3rd quarter, it just looked like the coaching on both sides of the ball didn't know what they were doing. The offense seemed weak, defense seemed weak. It didn't seem like we were doing anything well in that 3rd quarter whatsoever. It was a rough quarter. Let's see. Yeah, we couldn't get a stop on 3rd and short. This is a continual problem. I don't think we can ever expect to get a stop on 3rd and short with this defense, at least not without Milton Williams back and Spillane back. Maybe they're even with those guys. I don't think we're the type of team that can shut down a team with 1 yard to gain. But you never know. I shouldn't say that. We were very solid against the run. Hopefully, when Williams and Spillane come back, we'll be a team that can stop a team on 3rd and short. But in this game, it never looked like there was even a remote challenge to Baltimore to dominate the line of scrimmage in those situations. All right. And some of those holes in the second half, I mean, the offensive line was just manhandling whoever we had out there. I wrote that I thought I hated that Cam was right. Fool's gold indeed. That's how bad I felt about this team in the third quarter. We looked like the fool's gold Cam Newton was calling us. I really thought that this was going to be an embarrassing loss to the backup quarterback um, of the Ravens with their backup quarterback. If we'd lost this game, we never would have heard the end of it. Like it was actually so important that we got this fourth quarter comeback, because otherwise you lose to the Ravens without Lamar Jackson for a whole half, and everyone would be, condemning you to the not a contender category. And the funny thing is, funny enough, I watched First Take, and Cam Newton has suddenly changed his tune. Now he's no longer calling us fool's gold. He's saying he's seeing things that make us a potential champion. So I don't know. He might just be. It doesn't seem like it's very strange for him to make a complete 180. He's probably just saying, I think people are realizing that no team is great. Every team has a chance. So that's where kind of like after watching this game, that's where I put us. I don't think we're the favorite to win anything. But we have as good a chance as anybody, because as we saw in that Denver game, Denver isn't as solid as I thought they were. And even the Texans would beat the Raiders only by 2, Nobody is a world beater in this playoffs, and that's pretty much the only reason why we have any real shot this year. We're not like a dominant team. We're not even no one would confuse us for any of the dynasty teams of the past. But you just have a lot of teams that aren't that great. Like I say, the league promised parity this year from early on with that commercial, and you're getting it. If this team wins the Super Bowl, I'll tell you this: it'll be one of the worst teams I've ever seen. One of the worst, probably the worst Patriots team to win a Super Bowl, I'd say, and that includes that 2001 team. This team has a lot less talent, I'd say, than that 2001 team. If they win a Super Bowl, it'll only be because every other team is also so mediocre. Anyway, let's continue here. It's kind of dragging on. I'm trying to work on this here. So let's see. Blah, 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 blah. So there it is. Then it all changed on that huge pass. Let's see. He had gotten Kyle Williams involved a little bit in that drive earlier. He had a 9-yard pass, which was good to see. But I did not expect Kyle Williams to once again have a huge play. Everything changed with that Kyle Williams. I mean, it was just like that was what you hoped to see from Drake May. He has the ability at any point to throw one of those perfect bombs that looks like it's just been dropped right in their hand. And it just the pass to Kyle Williams. When I first saw it, I did not think it was a touchdown. It looked like Kyle Williams was so close to the sideline. Like, how could that possibly be a touchdown? But it was, and that was just fantastic. Great to see. Young guy that, for a while we were all kind of wondering, is this guy going to be good? It's exciting to have a guy. Kyle Williams could be good. I'm not going to say he's going to be a number one receiver, but he has kind of separation ability. And with May, it's good to see him. Some people were saying he only has the ability to run in a straight line towards the end zone, which might be true. We don't know. It's still early on. It's his first year. We can't give him too much crap. I don't think he's any kind of a playbook genius, that's for sure. But if he can get separation like that, as long as he can get separation, make it throw him the ball. Make it throw him the ball in the end zone. It's always going to be a possibility. So I would not be surprised if we see more of this. We've already seen a couple of big plays to him. The biggest two being the one in the Giants game, and then this one. And he's an exciting guy to have on the team. It continues to make our last draft look great. Kyle Williams is kind of like the biggest piece that I was wondering if he would ever step up, and he's paying dividends. He's looking like a pretty good draft pick at this point. I hope he gets more and more of a role. It's fun to have a guy. He's not the tallest guy in the world, but you don't really need him to be tall when Drake May can put it perfectly in his breadbasket even with players right behind him. As long as he can get any kind of separation whatsoever, we're going to see more of the Drake May to Kyle Williams connection, and it's exciting. It's fun to see a young guy with speed who's could be a difference maker as a wide receiver, because most of the knock on our wide receivers is that they don't have separation ability, and for some reason people don't think of Kyle Williams as being like a premier receiver at any point, but I think he'll certainly could potentially be a big part of the offense in the coming years. I don't see why not. A guy who can get separations. People have been downplaying him. I don't think he should be downplayed. he's not the tallest in the world, and I guess that's why he doesn't get as much credit as he should. But I like the May Williams thing is starting to develop finally. It took most of the year, but we're starting to see some real connection there, and I think he could be a valuable asset in the playoffs because I hope to see more of these deep passes to Kyle Williams. Just exciting stuff. Yeah, I did say that I thought that our inability to get off the field versus Tyler Huntley was kind of condemning. It didn't even whether we won or lost. I say it wasn't great that we couldn't get off the field against him easily. Fortunately, it wasn't. Then we lost Tonga. At the point we lost Tonga, I was like, ugh, how many people are we going to lose in this game? And really, that's the other thing you got to worry about with this game is we took a major injury hit. You had Tonga go down, Travion Henderson went down. You had Carlton Davis. I don't know how the severity of his injury. He seems to go down in every game, so I guess it's not the end of the world. But you hope that at some point one of these isn't like a crucial blow. Marcus Jones barely played. We had lost Thayer Munford for a while. We lost Robert Moses for a while. Fortunately, they both came back, but we gotta hope that Tonga isn't seriously injured. Gotta hope that Davis isn't seriously injured. We need both those guys. Gotta even hope that Charles Woods isn't seriously injured. Our cornerback depth is already stretched thin. If you lose Woods and Davis, it's starting to get, and MJ. We're talking about who else do we have left? Just Gonzo. Gonzo can't play alone out there. Yeah. You also know that Marcus Jones was not feeling the greatest because he was totally neutralized in the punt return game. Kept waiting for a big return from him, or at least some kind of big play that would get the team stoked. And it was just like he didn't even get close to the ball. They said he only played a small percentage of plays. Clearly, he's not doing so well. It's scary. All these injuries piling up. I hope that whoever gets rested needs to gets some rest against the Jets, who don't seem to be capable of doing anything against anybody. They just got their ass handed to them by the Saints. So I'm hoping that this next game is kind of a rest game. They don't play anybody who absolutely doesn't need to be played. They can win this game on just not doing stupid stuff. Yeah, you wonder if they could have won this game without Lamar Jackson. I mentioned that earlier. And then let's see. So after the Kyle Williams, that play changed everything. That was a hell of a play. Let's see, touchdown pass. That was the one. Then we got a punt, and then let's see. That was when we started to get Huntley short left. Kevin Mitchell, Huntley. See, this is the point at which Derrick Henry should have been in. They keep running this Mitchell guy. It just doesn't make any sense at all. There's a solid defense there, and then we held them. That was a big stop. And the only reason why they stopped him is because Derrick Henry wasn't in there. That's the real joke of it. Of course, at a certain point, also, you went to wonder, like Tyler Huntley was throwing little tiny dink and dunk plays. They didn't have him throwing deep at all. So, at that point, the loss, both Lamar and Derrick Henry being out of the game, it was almost like after we scored that Kyle Williams touchdown, they just kind of drew out the white flag when they were only down by 3 points. There was no reason for them to be playing that way. Then we get our next touchdown, which is another play to Hollins. I mean, again, May is so great at going everywhere. That fourth down just totally redeemed May. Most of the game, he was really not having a great game. He was doing adequate at best, making some stupid plays. And then everything just turned on. It was weird, It's like this is the type of game where you really expected to lose, and then it was like we get to the fourth quarter and everything turned. I was just third quarter. I was grumbling and complaining and just saying how this is a terrible loss and how this is going to be a joke. And I couldn't be more pissed in the third. And it's amazing how everything just turned on a dime. Drake May suddenly just decided he was going to win the game, and this is another thing I wanted to point out is that one of my biggest concerns about them losing to the Bills was that you wondered if May was a fourth quarter comeback type quarterback. I said that in the last game, and I said he didn't look like he had it like Tom Brady. Tom Brady did it from the beginning. It was early signs that maybe May wasn't that guy, and what do you know? He showed he can be clutch. Drake May showed he can be clutch. This is incredibly important. Who knows if he has it like some of the greats, but he hasn't had many opportunities to show it, and he really stepped up. He became the guy. Uh, Really, the only thing that made me concerned at all, there's no question to me he's a better quarterback than everybody in that draft. Caleb Williams is not a guy I would want to rely on. As good as he's been in the fourth quarter, he's just not as consistent. Jaden Daniels, excellent quarterback also, but not nearly as robust as Drake and reliant on running. I don't like that as much. Drake is the best quarterback in that draft, and he's going to be a joy to watch for us Patriots fans for the next 10 to 20 years. Made a good case after blowing his case for MVP in the Bills game. He comes right back, leads the team to victory in the fourth quarter, and the MVP case is definitely back on for Drake May. I thought that Stafford was starting to roll to it. Now we'll see. I don't really care much about who gets the MVP. It would be nice if Drake got an early MVP, help his legacy. We've already rooted for the best quarterback in history, so do I care if we have another one who's one of the best in history? Yeah, I mean, it's nice for him, he seems like a decent dude. We don't want his head getting too big necessarily, because when your head gets too big, that can cause problems too. I think May's head will continue to get bigger as time goes on, but because right now he's pretty he seems pretty self-effacing and like a decent dude. He's got a girlfriend who's just like the cutest woman in the world. Just seems very pleasant, all American kind of girl. Who likes to bake. It's just the bakemas stuff she's doing is the cutest in the world. But anyway, so yeah, Drake, he proved to me he's got more in him than I had given him credit for. And just the way he came through at the end of that game, thank God we have this guy. It would be hard to continue. It's like it's hard to it would have been hard if we never had a quarterback that took over from Brady that we could at least somewhat believe in. I had fantasies about what life was going to be like after Brady, and thinking, well, maybe, I was wondering how much joy can we get out of this. I was like, well, maybe we'll get some Johnny, some I don't want to say Johnny come lately, but somebody, maybe we'll get some guy who will be on an upward trajectory. We'll feel like we're relevant again. Now, I did wonder if that was ever going to be the case. Well, this is almost as exciting as anything in the Brady era. Just cool to see this, that we're lucky enough to have a young quarterback with this kind of touch on those deep balls. I mean, that is just every single time he throws deep, you think this could be a touchdown. And you don't want it to all be about deep balls. I think he's starting to, for a while he's like he refused to be a check down Charlie, and it's like that's part of the game. You got to check down when it's time, and I think he started to take those check downs in that game. That was part of the reason why he was able to make that deep pass to Kyle Williams happen, because you have to be willing to take it all. You can't become predictable as the guy who goes for the end zone every time either. And I think he started to show it in this game. I think they started to make little inroads and started to make little shorter passes and cuts, and I think that opened up the field for him. As long as he's willing to always throw to the open man, whether they're deep or short, obviously that play to Kyle Williams was key to putting us back on top in a big way. But I think we'll just see Drake May continue to get better. He makes some stupid decisions some of the times where it leaves you scratching your head, but I guess every quarterback does to some extent. And, I don't think his inconsistency is enough to overwhelm the fact that he's going to be a fantastic quarterback for the foreseeable future. So we're spoiled. We're spoiled. Brady and now May, just it doesn't get much better. Oh, but I did want to mention the whole Drake May thing. This is a stupid thing. This is a stupid thing. I'm sorry. I'm going to be an old man now. You kids with this Drake May stuff. This is so dumb. Who says... I suppose that they say that they said this because people like to compare other people, so they'd be like, Kobe, Michael Jordan, Bryant, or something like that. Maybe that would be like that's not what they would say back then, because my generation didn't engage in this kind of silliness. It's just like, so he's like Drake. The idea is that because he's comparing himself to himself, because he's so great that you can only compare him to himself. He's, in reality, you'd say he'd be like, Drake, Josh Allen, May, or something like that, or Drake, whatever. I think he's probably the most like Josh Allen of any of the quarterbacks. I don't think he's particularly, he's different than Josh Allen. Josh Allen is more dynamic as a running threat. Drake May is a decent running threat, but he's not a running threat the way Josh Allen is. I see a lot of, I think the Mahomes comparison is there to some extent because he can make those sort of, you know, those what do they call those, shuttle passes or whatever, where they just kind of flips the ball, flip passes and things like that. He's elusive the way Mahomes is. Better as a running threat than Mahomes is, so I see why people would rather go towards Josh. I mean, he's his own thing, and that's I guess why they give him this ridiculous. But there's nothing like smooth about being called Drake May May. I mean, if you do it the way people are supposed to do it, you say Drake May May. It's clunky and dumb. That doesn't sound good. Oh, check out, it's Drake May May. Blah. On the other side, you can go. Some people have been saying Drake May May, and at least that's like has some pizzazz to it. It's Drake May May, oh yeah, that kind of deal. But like, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. We should come up with something better. I don't know. There was a few decent suggestions. I mean, I'm not gonna keep going Drake May May. It just sounds stupid. It all sounds stupid. So I'm personally against this whole Drake May May thing. I think this is silly. It's like I don't know why everyone has to be compared to somebody else. I don't think it's funny. People think it's funny. It's this is like some Gen Z BS, is what I'm saying. I'm sorry, I can't get behind the Gen Z BS. Your whole culture is stupid. I might lose some Gen Z fans on this one. I don't know, whatever. You guys do what you want. I mean, they're still going to keep calling them that, so I'm not going to partake in this, You can have your fun. I just think that it's not cool. It's lame. That's what I'm saying. This Drake May stuff is just, I would never, I'm not going to indulge in this stupidity. All right. That said, sorry, that's my old man take on this stuff. I can't take it. And then what ended up happening? And then finally, the big finish was Caleb Von Chason with the huge fumble. And a guy who, in this game, didn't really show up until that fumble, but that sealed it. Once he had that fumble, you were thinking, well, that's it. And from there on, it was just kind of like working the game out. Once we had the ball, you had to feel pretty good about it. We knew that they didn't have many timeouts left. That Chase-on fumble really sealed the game. So hats off to Chase-on. Him and Landry, when they're both healthy, probably have a pretty decent. Once we get him and Landry together with Milton Williams, and if Spillane, hope to God Spillane comes back, it's a good enough defense to be scary, and it's a good enough defense, as I've said, to beat anybody. And I think if Drake May is having a good day, it's even a good enough team to beat an NFC team, even though the NFC teams are going to be much tougher than the AFC teams. But I believe that if we can somehow get back to health, I don't know if Landry will ever be 100%. Seems like he's had his knee thing since the beginning of the year, so I'm not super optimistic about that. But even if he could be like 80%, we get Milton Williams back, and we get Spillane back, our defense suddenly becomes, not a scary unit by any stretch of the imagination, but good enough to make us a threat with any good Drake May game. And I think another thing I wanted to mention is that another primetime game, it was an ugly performance to start for Drake May, but he shorted it up, and I think Drake May really gets up for these primetime games. This is a good trend we're seeing here, where he just sort of like, I feel like he likes to win when the lights are the brightest, and that is a good sign, because all these playoff games are going to be bright lights. So hopefully he keeps that up. But I also want to make specific mention. Stephon Diggs, what a game, always open, great catches. People were mentioning that 4th and 2 catch he made where Drake May just put the ball in the perfect place. That was so huge. And, in that third quarter, I think it was near the end of the third quarter, they were down by 11 points. My morale was as low probably as the team's, and they show Diggs on the sideline going, chin up, I didn't think I had very low expectations for Diggs coming this year. There's a guy who's coming off an Achilles, which everybody knows is brutal. Guy who there've been rumors was a locker room cancer at times. Seemed like a guy who was sort of full of himself, had a bit of drama going on with the baby mama stuff, and I think he's still full of himself. But I think he's made a transition. I think he realizes that. I think he realized his legacy was at stake, and he's turned himself into a different kind of player. He's a mentor now. That whole bit where he goes, "Keep your chin up." I had some hope just watching him say that. I'm like, this is a guy, is a team leader, and he's telling the team, "Hey, this game ain't over. We've got a whole quarter here." And he put his play where his mouth is. He lived up to his own hype. He told him to keep his chin up, and then he kicked ass to finish the game. The guy's great. He's a great signing. I did not think he was going to. I had very low expectations for Diggs. I didn't think he would come back so quickly. I didn't think he would contribute so much. I didn't think he would be anything like the receiver he was before he went down with injury with the Texans. It seemed like he was already in decline as far as I could tell after Buffalo got rid of him, and it's just, I hope he earns as full of himself as he is. He's earned everything he's done this year. Came to a New England team that desperately needed him, and was the guy we all had an inkling of hope that maybe he could be. And actually, I think he's even out surpassed that. Never thought he'd be the team leader that he's become. Just an incredible offseason signing. And it's amazing how well this has worked out. I hope he gets every incentive bonus that is in his contract. Because this guy has been, we wouldn't have a chance without this dude. Way to go, Stephon. Just great work, and great work to give the team hope in a time that felt, for everybody as a fan, I'm sure as being on the team, it didn't feel good in that third quarter, and I feel like Diggs significantly changed the tone by helping everyone focus there. So yeah, finally, let's see, we got again Ramondre, fantastic game all around, good blocking. Great as a pass receiver. I'd like to see Ramondre used in more pass receiving situations. He's really good. He has good hands. He catches the ball well. And I don't want to see him on these deep passes. That's not what he's meant for. Like a nice, you want to give him, using him in wheel routes seems like the best type of scenario. Does a lot with the ball after the catch, too. Great game for Ramondre. Great rushing, great pass receiving, great blocking, all around. Good to see Ramondre back and being a big part of the team. Let's see. As far as what people were saying on the Pat's Pulpit website afterwards, people were wondering why they didn't have Marcus Jones and Zay Flowers instead of Gonzo, as I mentioned. Marcus Jones was compromised. I think that's why you did not see him covering, even though ideally in a situation where Marcus Jones was healthy, you would see Marcus Jones on Zay Flowers and Gonzo elsewhere. But they made do. Again, May finally showing his comeback, showing a little bit of comeback potential. And I also noted that it's a good sign he could find success against a tough pass rush. This is going to be something we're going to be facing a lot in the playoffs. We've got our teams with good pass rushes. And even though our offensive line basically crumbled in this game, May still was able to keep plays alive and scramble really well and make some big throws under a lot of pressure. So even if our offensive line, we hope you get Will Campbell back. No guarantee of that, but we certainly hope that happens. Wilson's already back and looking pretty good. Hopefully Moses, whatever injury he sustained in that game, they said he was wincing by the end of the game, so I hope it's not a big deal. You'd like to see him be protected as much as possible, but at the very least, even if our offensive line does become compromised at any point in these playoffs, you know that May at least has the ability to fight through it and still be effective. 44% pass rush pressure rate for the defense against the Pats in this game, and May, even that only seemed to get worse in the fourth quarter, and May just looked like he had ice water in his veins in that fourth quarter. So great things to see from Drake May. Very exciting. This was a crucial win to give us a chance at the 1 seed. I thought the 1 seed was gone. I didn't see The Broncos even losing to Jacksonville. Jacksonville is now a team that maybe we should be a little bit concerned about. I'm not going to think about them specifically because I think the Texans are still the scariest, but Jacksonville has been on quite the run. They're not to be taken lightly anymore. For them to go into Denver and dominate the way they did, I did not see that coming. I thought Denver was going to win that game, as I mentioned. I'm going to do a coverage of in that first game preview. I did a league coverage, and I didn't think that should be a separate video, so I'm going to talk about that later. But great to see the Broncos lose, put some doubt in their minds, and I think we're gonna have to hope. If we're gonna win that one seed, there's pretty much I don't see the Broncos aren't losing to the Chiefs with Gardner Minshew the way they're playing. I think the Chiefs have one foot out the door, probably trying to. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Andy Reid was mailing it in so that they would lose and get better picks so that they can reboot their dynasty 2.0 the way the Patriots did. Hopefully, they won't be capable of doing that at all because I would hate to see that, but. I don't think they have any incentive to win these games. And I don't see the Chiefs beating Denver, even in Kansas City. But the Chargers look solid also. Herbert's playing the best he has all season, even with his offensive line in shambles. I think it's going to be tough for the Chargers to beat the Broncos because they don't have their two tackles, and the Broncos have one of the best pass rushes in all the NFL. So I have a hard time seeing how the Broncos are going to lose that game, but the Chargers have looked good somehow. They've managed to put together an offensive line that can somewhat protect Herbert enough for him to look good. So we're just going to have to hope that the Chargers can beat the Broncos. That's the only way. I think the Pats definitely win their last two games. It's hard to imagine them losing to the Jets or Miami at this point. So we need the Chargers to beat the Broncos, and it's not. I'd say I'd say I give the Broncos probably like 65%. I'd only give the Chargers 35% chance of winning that game, but 35%, even that. The fact that we even have a 35% chance in my mind of being the one seed, that one seed would be so valuable for us. Not having to go to Denver to play a game, getting an extra week to rest all these injuries that we've been having. I know we don't play as well, it seems, coming out of the bye as some other teams do, but I think if we can get that number one seed, huge. It'd be absolutely huge. It would help our chances of potentially getting to the Super Bowl, greatly. It'd be nice to avoid the Texans in round one. Let's hope a miracle happens. We get that one seed. I thought it was over. Let's see the Broncos lose to the Chargers. Let's finish this thing out strong. It's cool that we have a shot at the one seed at all. I thought that was long gone. So, yeah, that would be a Christmas present. Let's see. Finally, going over where I was right. I got the score prediction. I was off by 1 point. I said 27-24. They won 28-24. Mostly luck. I'm not going to say I knew it was going to be that, but I at least had the right idea. I did not see Drake May. If you told me that the game was going to go the way it went, I wouldn't have predicted a 27-24 score. But I ended up working out in the end. Yeah, we're gonna need Milton Williams and Robert Spillane back to have any kind of rushing defense. It's ugly out there without them. Any kind of half decent running back, and Derrick Henry is one of the best running backs of all time. He's getting up there though. He's towards the end of his career. Probably not the same running back he was earlier, but still, a force to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, there aren't too many other than Cook is the biggest problem I think for us looking at running backs. There's some guys on the other teams that have been shown some, that flashed some potential. But other than Cook, we don't have anything too much to worry about. So, but we're gonna need Spillane. Hopefully, Spillane comes back. I don't know. It's kind of this gray area with his injury where there's just like no talk of exactly what it is or how long he's gonna be out. So, in fact, let me just quickly look. I think Spillane. I didn't realize how important Spillane was. He ended up being a much better signing than I ever would have thought. When we first heard about him, he sounds pretty good. But he's looking like a key part of this defense, especially against the rush. Let's see what NBC Sports says his injury here. Let's see. So he's got an ankle issue, I guess. That's better than it being like a turf toe type of deal. They just say it's an ankle. And they're not really. It's like I'm trying to figure out if it was it only. So let's see, DNP ankle injury. So they say it was a foot issue, not listed with an ankle. He had a foot issue, now it's an ankle issue. He has a walking boot. I mean, the walking boot. There's people that have been in walking boots that are serious things, and people in walking boots that don't have serious things. It's saying it's some combination of the ankle. Maybe he has both the ankle and a toe issue. I don't know. If it's just an ankle issue, then we know he'll be back before the playoffs, so that's a good sign. If it's an ankle and a toe issue simultaneously, I still hope he makes it back by the playoffs. I don't want to see Spillane until game one of the playoffs, honestly. Guy's too important. If he can come, I mean, if he comes back in that Dolphins game and they give him some snaps, fine. But it's definitely concerning. We need Spillane badly. We need Milton Williams. Hopefully, Milton Williams comes back and looks good against the Jets, and we can finish out strong. If not against the Jets, at least against the Dolphins. All right. So yeah, we need, and Landry just has to be healthy enough to create some pressure. And yeah, we'll see. Things should only get better from here on out at the very least. I mean, there's still more injuries to worry about. We've got so many injuries to worry about at this point that just got to wait till Wednesday and see what the first injury report says. You know, a lot to be concerned about. But if the Patriots don't wrap up the number one seed, at the very least, Jaguars prove that you can win in Denver. We are a better road team than we are a home team for whatever reason. It seems strange, but at the very least, if we end up not getting the first seed, if we can hold on to the second seed, which I think at the worst we'll hold on to the second seed, since chances are we win both these games, and that should give us at the very least the second seed. Then you know, actually I'm more worried about Houston at this point than Denver. So we'll see. You know, I think even the Texans would have a hard time outright stopping us because you know, we have a more dynamic offense than the Bills did when they played Texas. So we'll see. It's going to be tough if you really want that one seed so that the Texans can knock out somebody else first. You know, you don't want to be that first. If we don't get the one seed, though, I do believe that at the very least we know that if we have to go through Denver, we can win in Denver. If Jacksonville did it, I think we can do it too. I also I was wrong on that. This is, by the way, this goes into the where I was wrong segment. I thought that the other thing was I thought that Drake May would only succeed. You know, I thought that the big part of the reason why he failed against the Bills in that second half was because it was a pass-only offense. Well, we saw Drake May pretty much succeed in a pass-only offense last night. So I guess I was wrong. You know, I thought that part of the reason why they lost that, a lot of people were saying the reason why they lost to the Bills or why they couldn't get any offense going was because we were a pass-only offense at that point. I just think it was because May was having. Now I'm starting to think it was that was might have been part of it, but it was more so because May just is having a bad game. He just did not have a good game against the Bills. I don't know if he let the pressure get to him. I feel like sometimes he, you know, I don't know. He didn't let the pressure get to him last night. It just might have just been a day-to-day thing. Some days he's good. You know, May can succeed if the running game is going nowhere. It's already proved last night. You can't rely on it, I don't think, but it shows that it's possible. So that is good to see. He may not have been able to do it against. I mean, also the other thing was that you know it was easier for him to succeed against Baltimore than Buffalo because Buffalo's secondary is much better than Baltimore's. So I suppose May can succeed, you know, in a pass-only offense as long as he's playing against subpar competition. But not as many. Not there aren't a lot of teams that have as good of a pass defense as the Bills do. So it was good to see May step it up, even when everyone knew he was going to be throwing pretty much every time. And those third and longs are great. You know, having a guy who can do it on the third and longs kind of like reminds me of the Brady days. You know, you never quite felt like they were out of it. I remember in Mac Jones, the third and long was like instant death. And yeah, Drake May can really do it from third and long. So it's a nice ace up the sleeve to have in those types of situations. And another thing I was wrong about. I was wrong about. I thought that Denver would beat the Jags. I mentioned that, so I was wrong that people can win in Denver. Jaguars prove it's possible. It gives me hope for if the Patriots have to face Denver in Denver, that game is not going to be an automatic loss. And the the defense. I said that the defense would have to stop Henry in order for them to win this game, and they didn't stop Henry, and they still won the game thanks to Drake May. So, and thanks to John Harbaugh actually, taking Henry out. Obviously, if Henry had been in the end there, maybe it would have been a different story. I really thought they were going to have to stop Henry a lot more than they did in that game to win, but they still managed to pull it out. So give the team credit for managing to win under less than ideal circumstances with all the injuries. We're going to need those guys back. Going to need, hopefully, I really hope that the team is full strength. It would be a shame if this team didn't get a chance to show what it could do full strength. It's not going to be full strength. I really don't think Harold Landry's knee is going to get that much better at the end of the year. But in fact, if anything, I'm worried that we'll probably lose, somebody additional. Hopefully, they won't play so hard that they get injured in either of these last two games. I'd hate to see anybody else be done for the year in these last two games. So let's hope that they stave off injury. Let's hope that that we get to see a real chance at what this team can do. We've lost big guys before. We'd be incredibly lucky to make it to the playoffs this year without sustaining any major injuries. But I really hope we get a chance to at least see a game or two with the team at full strength, because I think we all know this team has a lot of potential when everybody's healthy. I just think that the biggest issue with the team we know is the depth, and nothing is a bigger Achilles heel for us than losing some of those big names that are on the starting lineup. And we have some, at least Gibbons is a decent backup. We've got some decent backups around and about, but they're going to need more. They're going to need more than that to beat some of these teams. So that's it. That's my game review. Tough game to watch. They pulled it out. Next two games, I'm hoping will be cakewalks. We shall see. You never want to take teams for granted. These two games, I guess, would be kind of like trap games with the playoffs coming up. We want to hold at least the second seed, I think. Definitely want to see, at the very least, we'll either have the Chargers either the Chargers beat the Broncos and we got a shot at the 1 seed, or the Chargers lose and we get a shot to play the Chargers in the playoffs instead. We'll see. It's so uncertain that it's probably too early to make any speculation like that. But I'm off to go watch the 49ers Colts game. I'll be doing an update of around the league kind of update. I've decided to separate that out and do just a general coverage of the leagues, and go over my pick predictions and give a general feeling on all the teams. That'll be another video that'll come out soon. In the meantime, hope you enjoyed this. I think the only person watching it will be me for the most part in the near future. It's hard to want to self-promote as much as you need to get viewers to watch these types of things. But, I got to just keep making videos, and so this one should have come out sooner. I wish I'd put it out. Maybe I'll see about putting it out sooner in the future, trying to do it the night after. I was so busy. Some part of me thinks I have to watch all the post-game stuff and internalize everything they say so that I have ideas. One of the things was, like I said, like watching Cam Newton turn around the team and say he suddenly believed in them. That was one thing that I thought would be interesting to put in here. So it's kind of nice, but I don't want to spend too long. I don't want to become unpredictable when I put these game review videos up. So I'll try to be a little more consistent and maybe come out, I'd say, at the latest the day after, at some point during the day after, which is how I've done it here. Ideally, I'd do it immediately after the game so that there aren't too many people that do analysis immediately after the game. But I feel like I'd rather almost just have time to go over the game in my mind and cover all the things and listen to different perspectives, so I can kind of pull from a lot of different areas. But this was sort of all over the place. It's still kind of wild. I'm going to either have to work on being more concise and focused. I think having I'm still experimenting with what works and what doesn't work. I kept game notes. I think going over the game kind of works, but it kind of doesn't. I don't know. We'll see. But it's been fun making these, and I shall continue. We'll stay tuned for the Around the League recap and the pregame show for the Jets game coming up, which I feel pretty damn good about. Go Pats! Let's do this. Let's finish the season strong. Number 1 seed still up for grabs.